The Night Henry Ford Met Santa by Carol Hagen, illustrated by Matt Faulkner. It was a snowy evening 3 weeks before Christmas, 1908, in Detroit, Michigan. Henry Ford was in his workshop, admiring his new Model T Ford. Henry thought it was the most beautiful car he had ever seen. He wished that everyone in town could own one of his cars, but each car cost a lot of money to make, and it cost a lot of money to buy. That meant only rich people owned the Model T. Back at the house, Henry's wife, Clara, was in the kitchen making supper. The smell of chicken and dumplings filled the air. Edsel Ford, who was 8 years old, sat at the table writing a letter. "Dear Santa," he wrote, "I have been a very good boy. This year I would like a train set and some roller skates. I can't think of anything else. Thank you, Edsel Ford." "Can we leave Santa some cookies and milk like we did last year?" he asked his mother. "That would be a nice idea," Clara answered. "We can also leave some carrots for his reindeer. They worked very hard pulling all those toys across the sky. Now, son, please put on your coat and boots and go out to the shed and tell Papa to come in for supper." Edsel bundled up and headed for his father's workshop in the shed behind their house. Outside, he could hear the snow crunch under his feet. He could see his breath form puffs of smoke. The moon was big and bright, and it made the field look like it was splashed with moonbeams and glitter. Edsel gazed up at the big yellow moon and imagined what it must feel like to drive a sleigh across the sky like Santa. This year on Christmas Eve, Edsel hoped to stay awake long enough to catch a glimpse of Santa and his reindeer flying across the night sky. Edsel opened the door of the shed. "Hello, Papa," he said as he shook the snow off his boots and brushed some snowflakes from his eyelashes. "Mama has dinner ready." "Thank you, son," Henry said as he put on his coat and boots. "Papa, are you going to ask Santa for anything?" Edsel asked as they walked through the deep snow. "I don't need a present from Santa, but I could use some advice," said Henry. "I need to find a way to make cars cheaper so that ordinary folks won't have to ride around in horses and buggies anymore. It would take a miracle to solve this problem." "Christmas is about miracles, Papa," exclaimed Edsel. "Write Santa a letter and ask him if he knows a better and faster ways to make the Model T. Anyone who can make millions of toys and deliver them in one night must have some good ideas." After all the dinner dishes had been washed, Clara went into the parlor to read the paper, and father and son sat back down at the kitchen table. Edsel rewrote his letter. He took out the line that said, "I can't think of anything else," and put in, "Please help my dad solve his problem. I know you can do it." Henry composed a letter to Santa, too. Here's what it said. "Dear Santa, my son Edsel has urged me to write you this letter. He thinks you can help me. What I need, Santa, is your advice. How is it that you are able to make millions of toys so quickly up at the North Pole? Can you help me find a faster way to make more cars for less money? Recently, I built an automobile called the Model T Ford. There are many people who would like to own one of my automobiles, but they don't have enough money. If I could make the car more affordable, doctors would be able to get to patients more quickly. Families could drive to church on Sundays and then enjoy a picnic afterwards. More farm children could attend schools in town. The cost of keeping a car is 4 times less than owning a horse. I just need a way to make the car cost less to make. Thank you for your help. Your friend and Edsel's dad, Henry Ford, Detroit, Michigan." The next morning, Henry mailed the 2 letters on his way to his factory in town. Several nights later, everyone in the Ford home was fast asleep. A light snow fell over the city. The only sound in the house was the tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the parlor. In the middle of the night, Henry awoke to a sound on the roof. Then he heard a loud thud and a groan coming from the parlor. He got out of bed and went downstairs. There in the fireplace was Santa. "Hello," said Santa. "What are you doing here?" cried Henry. "It's not Christmas." "Aren't you Henry Ford?" "Well, yes, I am." "Didn't you write me a letter saying you needed some help?" "Yes, I did write you a letter." "So I have come to help you with your problem," said Santa. "Come with me," he said with a twinkle in his eye. Santa took Henry up the chimney to his sleigh on the roof. Henry was surprised at how easy it was to get up the chimney. After a smooth ride, they arrived at the North Pole. Henry met Mrs. Claus, who was in charge of feeding the elves. Every day, Mrs. Claus and her helpers made delicious sandwiches and pies and hot cider for the elves to feast on. There were hundreds of elves working in Santa's workshop. Santa greeted every elf and knew each one's name. The workshop was very clean, bright, and even bigger than Henry's factory. The elves were busy making sure that all the children got their toys on their Christmas list. Down the hall was a very big round room. "This is the rotunda," Santa said. Seated at a long table were dozens of elves making toy trains. Henry noticed something different about the way they were working. Each elf had only one job to do. One elf cut the wood. The elf next to him pounded the nails as he put on the sides of each car. The next elf painted the train car. The next elf put on the wheels, and so on, until the last elf put the finished train into a beautiful Christmas box with the child's name attached. Henry noticed it took no time at all to make the train cars. That gave him an idea. "That's it! I'll make my cars the same way the elves are making these trains. I'll set up a factory with everyone in a line just like this one. Each worker will only have one task and pass the car along to the next worker. That worker will do one task until it reaches the end and the car is completely assembled. I'll be able to make hundreds of automobiles in half the time. More people will be able to afford to buy my cars because they cost less to make." As they left the rotunda, Henry saw many boxes, each one containing a train set for a different child. He noticed one box that said, "To Edsel, from Santa." When Santa dropped Henry off at home, the sun was just coming up. The family was still sleeping, and Henry decided he would wait until Christmas Day to tell him about his visit to the North Pole. Christmas morning finally arrived. Edsel woke up and leaped out of bed. The freshly fallen snow looked like a white velvet blanket. "It's Christmas!" he cried. He made such a commotion running down the stairs that his parents woke up too. As Edsel ran past the kitchen, he saw that the cookies and carrots were gone and the glass of milk was empty. Edsel howled with delight as he headed for the parlor. There under the tree were his new roller skates and a brand new train set. It was exactly what he had asked for, complete with hills, trees, barns, and miniature houses. Edsel noticed another box near the train. The card on the gift read, "To Henry, from Santa." "Look, Papa!" cried Edsel. "Santa brought you a present too." Henry unwrapped the gift and smiled. There in the box was a miniature Model T Ford. The end.